Hi everyone, tonight's video is on the organelle called the nucleus. Nuclei are found in all eukaryotic cells. That's one of our definitions of eukaryotic cells, is that they have a nucleus. So what is a nucleus? It is a structure that houses the DNA in the cell. DNA is a form of a nucleic acid, which is the fourth category of macromolecule that we haven't actually covered yet. For right now, what I want you to know is that DNA is a molecule that has the instructions on how to build all of the proteins needed in a cell. This DNA never leaves the nucleus, and it's found in the form of chromatin. So if you look at the picture here of the nucleus, you see these strings of chromatin. This is our DNA and protein together. It is surrounded, the nucleus is surrounded by a double phospholipid membrane. It's also called the nuclear envelope or the nuclear membrane. We'll talk a little bit more about that unique structure in a minute. And it has what are called pores, so these small holes in this membrane that allow things to come and go from the nucleus, but the DNA is never allowed to leave the nucleus. So I want to look at the structure of this membrane a little bit closer. As I said, the nuclear membrane or the nuclear envelope, it's a double membrane. It's surrounded by two phospholipid bilayers. So you can look here, you can see here's a phospholipid bilayer, but together the nuclear membrane is actually made up of these two phospholipid bilayers. For those four layers of lipids surrounding the nucleus protecting this DNA. But there are pores, so holes in the membrane that allow things to come and go. But it's not just an open door. It's a very regulated process for what gets in and gets out of the nucleus. There are some proteins here that are guarding the door, guarding the pores. You can think of them as doormen, and if you don't flash the right credentials, you aren't getting in or getting out of that nucleus. And the DNA is something that never does leave the nucleus. But that kind of presents a problem, because if the DNA has the instructions for how to build proteins, but those instructions never leave the nucleus, how does the proteins get made? Because the proteins are actually made in the cytoplasm. And the answer is that although the DNA doesn't leave the nucleus, the instructions that are in the DNA, a copy of them is made, and that is allowed to leave the nucleus. So if we look here, this is our DNA in the form of chromatin. And DNA has many, many genes in it. Each individual gene has the instructions for how to build one protein molecule. So in order to get that information out to the cytoplasm, a copy of one gene at a time is made by the process of transcription. Transcription is the process of making a copy in the form of mRNA of one gene in the DNA. That's a lot of words, so you may want to stop that and replay that. So for transcription, we make a copy of one gene from the DNA in the form of mRNA. mRNA is allowed to leave the nucleus. It can leave the nucleus through this nuclear pore, and once it's out in the cytoplasm, the instructions on how to make a protein are read by another organelle called the ribosome, which will be the subject of a future video. So that's all we have on the nucleus. You should make sure you have all of this in your notes.